Imagine yourself as a writer of a romantic movie. I know it's not your preferred genre, but let's stick with it for this example. You want your male and female leads to have a steamy, intimate scene together. So what do you do as the writer to put them in that position? You take away your female lead's ability to walk properly, and just like that, all your problems are solved. You can even do it a couple more times in different ways, making your leads have shaky legs and no stamina whatsoever. Trust me, the audience wouldn't mind. But now imagine bringing that same logic into superhero films, where people would create entire YouTube channels making 10+ minute videos dedicated to pointing it out. Speaking of which, please subscribe. Let's get this channel to 1,000 subs by the end of this month, because all I'm saying is it would be very, very noticeable. There is a scene in Black Panther that I think about more than I should. T'Challa, King of Wakanda, one of the most skilled fighters in the entire MCU, loses a ritual combat challenge to Eric Killmonger. And the reason given is that Killmonger had military training and has killed people. This is the same T'Challa who went toe-to-toe with Captain America and Bucky Barnes, without the heart-shaped herb, without his suit, just his hands and his skill. Let me ask you an honest question. How many kills do you think Captain America has? Or Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier for that matter? And he lost to military training. Now, I'm not saying Killmonger isn't a threat. He absolutely is. But the moment you sit with that fight for more than 5 seconds, something feels off. Not wrong exactly, just convenient. Like the story needed Killmonger to win, and T'Challa just had to take the L for it to happen. But then he wins the next fight, with both of them on the same power level, both juiced up and armed. That feeling has a name, and once you know what to call it, you will see it everywhere. What you just watched is called a plot contrivance, which is a fancy way of saying the story needed something to happen, so it made it happen. Logic be damned. And before you close this video thinking this is just another Marvel bad essay, I want to be clear. Plot contrivances are not inherently a bad thing. Every story has them. Every single one. Shakespeare used them. Hitchcock built entire careers on them. Your favorite film has at least one moment where you just have to go with it for the story to work. That is not the problem. But let's be more specific than that. Because plot contrivance has a very particular fingerprint. It is not just a coincidence or a twist. It is a forced, unnatural event that a writer uses to move the story forward when the story has written itself into a corner. And the reason it feels wrong every single time is because it lacks cause and effect. Nothing earns it. Nothing builds to it. It just happens because it needed to. There is also an important distinction worth making here. A plot contrivance is not the same thing as a plot hole. A plot hole is an inconsistency, a character being in two places at once, a timeline that doesn't add up. A contrivance is different. It is technically possible. It just feels deeply, frustratingly unlikely. Like the story is papering over a crack with the thinnest excuse it could find, hoping you don't look too closely. And the worst version of a contrivance, the version that makes audiences pause, rewind, and make 10-minute YouTube videos about it, is when a writer uses it to make a character act against everything they've been established to be. Not because something changed for that character. Not because they grew or regressed or broke under pressure, but because the plot needed them to fail, or needed them to say exactly the wrong thing at exactly the wrong moment. That is the version that feels like a betrayal. Now, before we get into all the ways superhero films have done this badly, and there are many, I want to give credit where it's due. Because the good version of this exists, and it has existed for centuries. In 1595, William Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet, and the entire tragedy, the deaths, the grief, the devastation, hinges on one thing, a letter that doesn't arrive in time. Friar Lawrence sends a message to Romeo explaining that Juliet isn't actually dead. Romeo never gets it. He finds her, thinks she's gone, kills himself. She wakes up, sees him dead, kills herself. The whole thing collapses because of bad timing and an undelivered letter. And nobody calls Shakespeare a lazy writer for it. Why? Because the contrivance doesn't betray the characters. Romeo isn't made stupid. Juliet isn't made weak. The situation conspires against them. Circumstances align in the worst possible way. The tragedy comes from the world being cruel, not from the characters being less than they are. Fast forward a few centuries. Home Alone, A Flight to Catch, 11 kids in the house. In the chaos of getting everyone out the door, they forget Kevin. Now, rationally speaking, how do you forget your child? It makes no sense. But the film earns it. It shows you the chaos, the headcount mix-up, the rush. The parents aren't idiots, they're overwhelmed. And crucially, the story needs Kevin to be alone for any of it to work. so it engineers the situation without making the parents lesser people. Even Hitchcock, the master of suspense, built entire films on contrivances. Wrong place, wrong time, mistaken identity. His characters were constantly at the mercy of circumstance, but they were never at the mercy of bad writing. They responded to their situations with full intelligence and full agency. The plot put them in impossible positions. It didn't lobotomize them to get there. That is the line. A good contrivance asks, what situation can we put this character in that forces the story forward? A bad contrivance asks, how do we make this character worse so the story can move? One respects the character. One uses them. And the reason superhero films keep falling into the second category comes down to one very specific problem that gets baked into these stories before a single frame is shot. Let's go back to Killmonger. The writers of Black Panther needed Killmonger to take the throne. That was the story. A man shaped entirely by pain and loss, returning to claim what he believes is his birthright. It's a compelling arc. Killmonger is one of the best villains the MCU has ever produced. The problem isn't the story they wanted to tell. The problem is the corner that story backed them into, because T'Challa cannot lose to Killmonger cleanly, not with everything we know about him. So something had to give. And what gave was T'Challa's established ability. The character was quietly made smaller, so the plot could move forward. Another example is Doctor Strange. I actually did a video dedicated to this guy because he is basically the punching bag for the writers. It might be subtle, but he is literally the guy the franchise uses to move the narrative forward, which is why he never truly feels like he is evolving or changing throughout the run of the franchise. In Spider-Man No Way Home, Peter Parker comes to Strange with a problem. His identity has been revealed. And Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, master of the mystic arts, a man who once reviewed 14 million possible futures, agrees to cast a spell that will make the entire world forget Peter Parker is Spider-Man. The spell goes wrong, the multiverse cracks open, and the entire film happens. But here is the thing. Strange could have done something simpler, something targeted, something that didn't risk tearing reality apart for a teenager. He has the ability, he has the knowledge. He is, by every established measure, one of the most powerful and intelligent beings in the MCU. He could have at least cast a spell for everyone to forget who Mysterio was. He just doesn't do that, because if he did, there is no film. We could sum it up to the fact that he is arrogant and has never taken anything seriously, but that would undermine the entire character arc of his first movie. The arrogant doctor who was brought to his knees after learning that there are things bigger than his ego. A man who didn't think of fighting Dormammu physically, but mentally outsmarted him instead. It doesn't make sense that someone who would take precautions for Thor and Loki would carelessly cast a spell that travels through unknown reality for a teenager.
Won't turn back time, at least people will forget that you were ever Spider-Man.
Seriously?
No,
that
not
would be...
seriously.
That spell travels the dark borders between known and unknown reality. It's too dangerous.
So Strange is made temporarily incapable, not because anything changed, not because he was weakened or compromised, but because the writers needed the multiverse open, and Strange was the only one who could open it. If you want a full breakdown of Doctor Strange, the link will be in the description, but his character development is basically a circle. In the fight with Thanos on Titan, Doctor Strange drops Mantis on Thanos' head instead of just chopping his head off, or using a portal to chop off his hand and send the gauntlet with Tony and Peter to another place, maybe Missouri.
You're from Earth. I'm from Earth. I'm from Missouri. Yeah, that's on Earth.
Or Iron Man, knowing what Quill was feeling, the anger and blind rage, because he once felt it too, should have blasted him away like he did with Falcon. Mind you, they had time to plan this out, but messed it all up because their plan was stupid. And yes,
You should have gone for the head.
but perhaps the most egregious example, and I say this with full awareness of how wild it sounds, is Reed Richards in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Mr. Fantastic, widely considered one of the smartest people in any universe, stands across from Wanda Maximoff, a woman they know is an existential threat, and spills out every detail about their greatest weapon, including the source of his strength.
Black Bolt could destroy you with one whisper from his mouth.
Oh my God! Wow!
Also, what was he trying to do here? Hug her? The smartest man in the room handed the most dangerous woman in the room the one piece of information that could destroy them. Not because it was in character, not because it made sense for someone of his intelligence, but because the scene needed dramatic stakes, and the Illuminati seemed like the best sacrifice. These moments feel different from Romeo's letter and Kevin being left behind. And the reason is simple. Romeo didn't become less intelligent for the plot to work. Kevin's parents didn't become negligent for the plot to work. But Chala became a worse fighter. Strange became a worse sorcerer. Reed became a worse thinker. And everybody else forgot the powers they have and what they could do with them. The plot didn't happen to them. It happened through them. So why does this keep happening? Why do writers who are clearly talented, working on films with hundreds of millions of dollars behind them, keep making the same mistake? It starts before the script is written. When a studio greenlights a superhero film, the ending is usually already decided. The set pieces are already mapped out. The trailer moments exist before the story does. Someone in a boardroom said, "We want the multiverse Spider-Man in the same room," and a writer sat down and had to figure out how to get there. Someone said, "Killmonger takes the throne," and a writer had to make Chala lose. This is called plot-first writing. And it is the default mode of big-budget franchise filmmaking. Plot-first writing is basically figuring out the main events, conflicts, and structure of your story before you even start writing scenes. It is actually the best thing any writer could do, but it also has its downsides, especially for a large, continuous universe. The problem with plot-first writing is that it works backwards. Instead of asking, "What would this character do?" it asks, "What do we need this character to do?" And those are very different questions. The first one follows the character. The second one follows the boardroom. And when you follow the boardroom long enough, you start sacrificing the character to get there, which creates the second problem: power scaling. Superhero characters, especially in the MCU, accumulate abilities across years of films. Strange gets more powerful with every appearance. T'Challa becomes a more refined fighter with every challenge. Wanda goes from moving objects to rewriting reality. And the more powerful these characters become, the harder it is to write stories where they face genuine obstacles. So writers do what writers have always done when a character is too powerful for the story they want to tell. They isolate them. They remove them from the situation entirely. That's why neither Hulk nor Thor was present during Civil War. Or they give them a convenient blind spot. Or they make them temporarily less than what they are. It is the path of least resistance. And it is almost always the wrong path. Because here is what those writers forget. Audiences are not just watching a story. They are watching these specific people. They have spent years with Strange. They know what these characters are capable of. They know how they think. They know what they would and wouldn't do. And when the character on screen stops being the character they know, even for one scene, even for one decision, they feel it. They might not be able to name it, but they feel it. There is a reason this has gotten harder to ignore. 10 years ago, you watched a superhero film, enjoyed it, and moved on. Maybe you talked about it with friends, maybe you saw it twice, but the conversation had a natural endpoint. That is not the world we live in anymore. Now every film gets dissected, frame by frame, decision by decision. The internet has produced an entire generation of viewers who don't just watch stories, they study them. They know the difference between character motivation and plot convenience. They know when a scene exists to serve the story and when a scene exists to serve the schedule. They have seen enough films, read enough essays, watched enough video essays to recognize the seams. And Marvel specifically has given audiences thousands of hours of content to study. Thousands of hours of these characters being exactly who they are. So when Strange stops being Strange for 5 minutes, or T'Challa stops being T'Challa for one fight, the audience notices. Not because they are looking for problems, but because they know these people. Contrivance has always existed in storytelling, but it has never been this visible, because audiences have never been this literate. And maybe that is not a bad thing. And if you want to see just how bad it gets, I did an entire video on why MCU magic makes absolutely no sense. It's on the screen right now, and I genuinely think it will make you angry.